Blake Lively has long been known as one of the brightest stars in Hollywood. From her breakthrough role in Gossip Girl to her carefully curated image as a devoted mother, a style icon, and a beloved actress, she built a reputation that once felt untouchable. Fans adored her elegance, her warmth, and the effortless way she seemed to balance a glamorous career with a stable family life. For many people, Blake was not just a celebrity, she was a symbol of what modern stardom could look like. But in recent times, that golden image has begun to crack. Headlines filled with controversy, criticism, and backlash have begun to spread across media platforms. And now the question being whispered and shouted alike is this: is Blake Lively's career at risk? At first glance, it feels almost shocking that someone like Blake could face such a storm. She was admired for her grace and charm, for the way she appeared at red carpets with confidence, and for the way she laughed openly beside her husband Ryan Reynolds. She was celebrated for her charity work and for her fierce protection of her children's privacy. For years, it seemed she had struck the perfect balance between being a beloved Hollywood figure and living a life rooted in family values. To her fans, she represented something rare. She was relatable yet aspirational. She was glamorous yet grounded. But the higher the pedestal, the harder the fall. And when cracks begin to show, the fall can feel devastating. The backlash that Blake Lively faces today is not the result of one single headline. It is the weight of many small storms colliding. A public statement that rubbed people the wrong way. A legal battle that raised uncomfortable questions. A silence at moments when fans expected her to speak. And the endless scrutiny of social media, where even the smallest misstep can turn into a tidal wave of criticism. In this culture of constant observation, one moment of misjudgment can become the spark for weeks of outrage. The love of fans can turn into disappointment, and that disappointment can quickly grow into anger. Blake's story is not just about one actress in Hollywood. It is about the way our society views fame and accountability. It is about the impossible expectations placed on public figures to be flawless yet authentic. Fans want honesty, but they also want perfection. They want their favorite stars to speak out, yet remain neutral. They want them to be glamorous, yet humble. That constant contradiction creates a pressure that few can survive without scars. And right now, Blake Lively seems to be caught in that contradiction with little room to breathe. For many fans, this backlash feels personal. They admired Blake, they trusted her, and they built her up as someone who could do no wrong. Seeing her stumble feels like betrayal to some and heartbreak to others. On the other side, there are critics who now feel emboldened, using every mistake to prove that her perfect image was always an illusion. The gap between who Blake Lively was believed to be and who she appears to be now is where the backlash lives and grows. This video will take you on a detailed journey through her rise and the struggles she now faces. We will see how she reached the heights of stardom, how certain controversies began to shape her reputation, and why public reaction today feels harsher than ever. We will examine the role of media, the wildfire of social media conversations, and the ways in which her career might be reshaped by the storm around her. From her earliest days in Hollywood to the latest headlines, Blake Lively's story is inspiring, but is also a cautionary tale. It is a reminder of how fragile fame can be and how quickly admiration can turn into doubt. She has given the world glamour, talent, and countless memorable performances. But the question now is whether that legacy will be strong enough to withstand the mounting backlash. So stay with us as we begin this documentary-style journey. In the next chapter, we will go back to the very beginning and revisit Blake Lively's rise to stardom. To understand why this backlash feels so shocking, we must first understand how she became the star she is today. Before the world knew her as Serena van der Woodsen on Gossip Girl, Blake Lively was simply a girl from Tarzana, California, who grew up surrounded by the world of film and television. She was born into a family that already carried deep ties to Hollywood. Her father, Ernie Lively, was an actor, and her mother, Elaine, worked as a talent scout. Acting was in her blood, yet Blake did not originally dream of becoming a star. In fact, she once admitted that she imagined a more ordinary path for herself. She wanted to go to college to find her own way outside of the family business. But Hollywood has a way of pulling certain people in, and for Blake, the path would open sooner than expected. As a young girl, Blake was shy and uncertain about the spotlight. She was not the type of child who begged for auditions or chased fame. Instead, she was like many other kids with interests in school and friends and dreams that fell far from the bright lights of Los Angeles. Yet her family saw something in her. They encouraged her to try acting. And even before she realized it herself, the world around her was preparing her for that stage. Her first real taste of acting came when she appeared in the film Sandman, which her father directed. She was just a child and the role was small, but it planted a seed. Years later, while still in high school, Blake landed her breakout opportunity in the film The Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants. That role changed everything. She was cast as Bridget Vreeland, a lively, athletic, and fearless young woman. The performance earned her recognition, and for the first time, she began to feel the weight of public attention. Audiences connected with her smile, her warmth, and the honesty she brought to the screen. She was no longer just a daughter of a Hollywood family. She was becoming a star in her own right. But it was Gossip Girl that would transform her life forever. In 2007, Blake was cast as Serena van der Woodsen, the glamorous and mysterious girl at the center of Manhattan's elite. The show exploded in popularity almost overnight. Teenagers and young adults across the world tuned in week after week, not only for the drama of the characters, but also to watch Blake embody the role of Serena with effortless charm. She became a style icon. Her looks were copied, her interviews were adored, and her name began to carry global weight. The fame Gossip Girl brought was overwhelming. Blake was still young, still navigating adulthood, yet the world demanded perfection. Paparazzi followed her everywhere. Fashion magazines placed her on their covers. Fans built her up as the face of an era. For many, she was not just Serena, she was a golden girl of Hollywood's new generation. With this fame came opportunities that many actors only dream of. Blake began landing film roles in romantic comedies, thrillers, and dramas. She worked alongside major stars and established directors. Hollywood saw her not only as a television actress, but also as someone with the potential to dominate the big screen. At the same time, her personal life became a subject of fascination. Every relationship she had, every red carpet appearance she made became part of her narrative. What made Blake stand out in this era was her ability to balance glamour with relatability. She was stunning on camera, yet she often described herself as someone who still felt ordinary. She admitted to being nervous in interviews and shy at times with strangers. That contrast made her more appealing to fans who saw in her a version of themselves that had simply been given a spotlight. She felt approachable yet untouchable at the same time. By the time Gossip Girl ended, Blake Lively was not just another actress. She was a household name. She was respected by the fashion world, admired by audiences, and taken seriously by the film industry. She had built a reputation as someone who could succeed in both television and film while maintaining a sense of elegance that made her a favorite at red carpets and brand campaigns. Her rise to stardom felt like a fairy tale. A young girl with dreams of college instead of Hollywood suddenly transformed into an international celebrity beloved by millions. The world seemed to open its doors to her, and for a time it felt as if nothing could shake her perfect image. Yet, as we now know, every fairy tale has shadows. The same spotlight that lifts someone to fame can also expose their flaws and magnify their mistakes. For Blake Lively, those shadows will begin to appear slowly, almost unnoticed at first. In the next chapter, we will explore the turning point. We will look at the first moments when her flawless reputation began to show cracks, and how those small controversies started to shift public perception. Every celebrity story has a moment when the shine begins to fade. For Blake Lively, that moment was not sudden. It was not one dramatic event that shocked the world. Instead, it was a series of small choices and public reactions that together began to change the way people saw her. The pedestal that fans had placed her on was so high that even the smallest stumble created an echo. One of the first turning points came when Blake began to be criticized for comments that seemed out of touch. She was admired for her fashion sense and her glamorous lifestyle, but as conversations about privilege, diversity, and responsibility grew louder in Hollywood, some of her words and actions felt distant from the struggles of ordinary fans. People began to question whether the image of the relatable girl next door was real or simply a carefully polished act. Her involvement in certain projects also drew scrutiny. When an actor chooses roles, the public often sees those choices as reflections of personal values. In Blake's case, a few films she worked on received backlash for the way they handled sensitive topics. Critics argued that she was not careful enough in selecting projects that matched the image she wanted to maintain. Others said that she was playing it too safe, choosing roles that relied more on her beauty than her depth as an actress. These criticisms slowly chipped away at the glowing praise that had once surrounded her career. Social media added another layer of pressure. In the early days of her fame, platforms like Instagram and Twitter were not as influential. But as the years went on, fans expected constant engagement and honesty from their favorite stars. When Blake shared moments of her family life, people admired her, but when she stayed silent during cultural debates, many accused her of being distant or avoiding responsibility. Silence that once felt like privacy was now interpreted as neglect. Fans wanted more from her, and when they did not get it, frustration began to grow. A particularly sharp turning point came during a film promotion when she made a comment that many believed was tone deaf. What might have been dismissed in an earlier era turned into days of trending criticism online. The story spread across entertainment sites, and fans who once adored her began to express disappointment. The backlash was not overwhelming at first, but planted a seed of doubt. If Blake Lively was a golden girl, why did she seem so disconnected at times from the world around her? Her legal entanglements also began to surface around this time. In the entertainment industry, lawsuits and legal disputes are common, yet when they involve beloved stars, they attract intense attention. Reports about filings linked to Blake began to raise questions. To some, she appeared to be fighting battles that contradicted the graceful image she had always maintained. To others, it was proof that even stars with perfect reputations have complicated lives behind the scenes. What made these turning points powerful was not that they destroyed her career. Blake continued to act to appear at major events and to maintain her role as a fashion icon. The power of these moments was subtler. They began to erode the trust that fans had placed in her. They made people look at her with a more critical eye. And once that critical lens was applied, every action became subject to deeper scrutiny. The girl who once seemed untouchable was now seen as human. And while being human can be a strength in connecting with audiences, it can also be dangerous when fans feel betrayed. The turning point in Blake Lively's career was a moment when the world stopped seeing her as flawless. The admiration remained, but it was mixed with doubt. In the next chapter, we will look at how the media and the public debate amplified these doubts. We will explore how coverage in magazines, entertainment shows, and online platforms began to shape a new narrative around Blake Lively, a narrative that painted her less as a golden girl of Hollywood and more as a star under constant watch. The turning point in Blake Lively's career might have started with small cracks, but the media quickly turned those cracks into headlines. In Hollywood, the press has the power to shape narratives. A story that might have once stayed within fan circles can be magnified when it appears in bold letters on entertainment websites or on the covers of glossy magazines. For Blake Lively, this meant that every choice, every statement, and every silence became fuel for endless debate. Magazines that once praised her as the golden girl began to ask more difficult questions. Could she keep up with the demands of Hollywood? Was her image as flawless as it seemed? Gossip columns thrived on these questions because readers want to know if the perfect star was finally showing flaws. Stories about her legal disputes or awkward public statements were presented in ways that drew more attention to the negative than the positive. Even when she appeared at glamorous events, the coverage often included whispers of controversy in the background. Television shows that focused on celebrity culture also joined the discussion. Panelists debated whether Blake was handling fame responsibly. Some defended her, pointing out her long career and her dedication to family. Others argued that she was slipping and that her reluctance to trend across platforms and shape the way millions of people viewed her within a single day. The speed of this cycle left little room for her to correct narratives or explain herself before the next headline appeared. What made this media coverage especially harsh was the contrast. For years, the press had celebrated her as one of Hollywood's most graceful stars. She was the actress who could do no wrong, the fashion icon who never missed a step, and the devoted mother who balanced family and career. The fall from that pedestal made every flaw appear larger than life. The same magazines that once placed her on best dressed lists now paired her photos with stories of backlash. The shift felt dramatic, even if it had grown slowly over time. Public debate followed naturally. Fans argued in online forums and comment sections. Some stood by Blake, believing that the media was being unfair and that she deserved more understanding. Others said that she was responsible for her own problems and that her polished image had finally caught up with reality. This debate made her career feel less like a personal journey and more like a public trial where every voice could weigh in on her future. For Blake Lively, the impact of this media storm was emotional as well as professional. Being constantly portrayed as a star under fire takes a toll. Even though she continued to appear at events with her signature smile, the tension was visible to those who looked closely. She was no longer only performing for film audiences. She was performing under the harsh gaze of an audience made up of reporters, critics,